Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. We caught up earlier today with James Sykes, CEO at Baselode Energy. We talk about their recent acquisition of Catharsis and also some of the issues they're facing with First Nations. He explains perhaps what they have learnt along the way as a result. We look to the future too. So if you want our thoughts and opinions on the conversations, topics discussed and the company, you can find that at cruxinvestor.com/club. We can also find detailed company reports and analysis. There's commentary from experts from around the world on a variety of companies and commodities, including our weekly uranium show, now in its 51st week. Some fascinating insights there each week. We've got training courses on there to help you with your diligence process. We've got summaries of all the interviews that we've done, just to save you some time, because we know you're busy people. But most importantly of all, there's a thriving community of investors sharing their thoughts and ideas with each other in a nice, safe and friendly environment, free from judgment, trolling and abuse. You should go and join them at cruxinvestor.com/club. We'd love your feedback too. So do give us a like, it'd be appreciated. Leave your thoughts below. We'll get back to absolutely everyone. And if you want to see precisely what we talked to James about this morning, do take a look in the description below. James Sykes, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Matthew. Thank you very much. And yourself?
All good here. All good here. When did we last speak to you? Beginning of December, wasn't it? How's life been?
About that, yeah. Life's been great. Snow is gone. So since we last spoke, the snow has melted away, which is very uncommon for this part of the world. But it's been busy. Baselode's been keeping me very busy, and I'm very happy to be doing what I'm doing with it.
Do you not like snow? Do you not like snow on a personal level or on a business level?
Funny enough, I love the snow. You can do far more in the snow than you can in the summertime, but it's been slightly cold. I just want to get done with the sun or get done with the snow and get out in the sun and enjoy bike rides, enjoy the pool, beaches, water, great things like that.
That'd be a long time. Beaches is a long way away, especially for you Canadians.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we still have 2 more months probably.
Hey, good to see you, first of all, because I really enjoyed our last conversation. And we'll put a link to the previous conversation where we talk business plan, strategy, team, and background, and all that kind of good stuff, so people can go and look at that. I called you because I want to talk about your summer exploration plan, okay? So let's do it. But before we do, give us that 1-minute overview of the business for people new to the story, and I'll pick it up from there.
Yeah, Baselode Energy, we are uranium exploration in northern Saskatchewan, the Athabasca Basin area. We are taking steps outside of the Athabasca Basin in that we are looking for basement rocks, where our exploration business model is looking for high-grade uranium that is near surface, that could be open pitable or cheaply mined through a decline scenario.
So I quite liked your strategy because it was different last time, and you kind of outlined why your strategy was better than the Athabasca Basin type stories, and I was intrigued, right? But I'm looking at the market. Market's done a lot of heavy lifting in terms of share price and market cap for a lot of companies, uranium juniors. The Athabasca Basin companies, they're all going through the roof. Have you picked the right strategy? Are you sure you don't need to be in there?
I feel pretty confident. You know what? It's a new strategy. That's what I really like. Whether it's the right strategy or not, I don't know, to be very honest. But when you see a lot of these recent discoveries that have been made in the past 10 to 20 years, the majority of them are basement hosted deposits, and they're not at the unconformity. So that alone opens up this whole new story and what has been overlooked. And I did a video recently that can be viewed on our website or on the Ore Group's YouTube channel, where I kind of expressed that what we see nowadays is not the historic extent of the Athabasca Basin. It was probably much larger than what it was. So do you need the Athabasca Basin? If you do, then I'm pretty confident that all 3 of our properties were under that basin during the mineralization event. But now they've all been eroded, which makes it all a lot easier for us in a mining scenario because you don't have to deal with that sandstone. So I think nature may have worked in our favor, and that's kind of what we're trying to exploit.
Right, and your big thesis to me was a basin, by definition, collects water, and water is problematic when it comes to mining, especially when we're talking about uranium. Does that still hold true for you, that thought?
Absolutely, yeah. And history speaks for itself. The amount of discoveries made in the Athabasca Basin that have not gone into production. From the 70s, Cigar Lake is that great example. 1976, I think it was discovered. Not into production until the 2000s. So that's over 30, 40 years from discovery into production for a mine that produces 15 to 20% of the global uranium production, and it took 30 to 40 years to go into production. That doesn't sound right. Okay, it sounds like there's something flawed there. And again, that comes back to that whole Athabasca situation with the water flowing down. They need the freeze caps. They're expensive. So you need a monster. You need a monster deposit discovery, or you need really high grades. Or if you're along the unconformity, which should be theoretically easier to discover, you can open pit those. But if you're outside of those, you look at one of the most efficient operations, that whole Collins Bay, Eagle Point, Rabbit Lake, Key Lake, all of these things that were open, pitable, or in the basement rocks have been easily mined out. Even Uranium City, 60 million pounds, all underground mining, and it was done. And there's no infrastructure at Uranium City. Like, you can't drive there. So they had to barge everything out, but they still managed to produce 60 million pounds, barge that out, bring it to market because it was easier. Well, it was also discovered before the Athabasca deposits, but it was still easier to mine those than to get into the Athabasca deposits.
It's interesting. So the barriers you're suggesting, one, water and everything that implies, two, timelines to approvals. Obviously, time is money, all of those wonderful things. And you've also got the issue of, we're going to get topical now, First Nations concerns too. Now, you're experiencing some of that yourself. So you're very cognizant of the damage and delays that can do. So talk to me about what's going on with you. You've come up against a bit of a brick wall, haven't you?
I wouldn't call it a brick wall at all. Times have changed. And that's basically what it is. So we're in a new reality, and it was kind of sprung on us that we're used to, at least I'm used to, a process for the past 15 years. You apply for your permits, you consult with the Indigenous groups, and everything's pretty well, it's straightforward. I guess now times have changed. The Indigenous do feel that they have been left out of the equation. We've been there at the forefront. As soon as we put in permits, we were in touch with the community right away to bring them along, educate them on what we were doing, how we were doing, and so forth. They just felt that they weren't prepared for us to come in. So things happened. They blockaded our work, unfortunately. But there's no animosity between both sides. We are back. Both community and Baselode and the government are all back at the table, communicating nicely. And it looks like we don't have a time frame for how long things could take. But the important part is that we're all back at the plate. We're all working towards the same end goal. And for us, that's to get working, but to do so in an environmentally friendly, socially conscious way that the Indigenous groups within, I guess, the shadow property more particular, that the Indigenous don't feel that our exploration will impact their rights or traditional lands. So that's really how we're trying to approach this whole thing, and just making it work for everybody involved.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fascinated because I actually spoke to a lawyer. He qualified in tribal law down in the US, whereas perhaps not quite as advanced as it is in Canada. And we talked at length about the way that you approach these things. I mean, and the order of the way that you approach things. Do you think that, what are your key learnings from this process that you've been through and you're now entering as well? How would you do things differently?
Key learning is just be more patient on my end, obviously. I'm quite an aggressive person. I love to explore. That's what I do, and it's what I feel I'm good at. So just basically slowing things down a bit. It's very uncommon for me. It's a whole landscape of change for me, but that's something that I can definitely do. Again, doing things properly, going to move things forward is far more valuable than just trying to bull in and rush in. So yeah, again, just sitting back, just working things through with the First Nations, trying to help educate them into what we do, because a lot of the problem that we do face is that they consider us to be mining. And when they think of mining, right away, they start thinking of the oil sands in Alberta. Now you can go into Google Earth and you can see the size differences. Those things, those oil operations, you can see from space. You try to find the mines in Saskatchewan, the uranium mines, they're pinpoints. There's nothing there. So just trying to educate them on that side of things, that, what we're doing, first of all, is not mining. We're exploring. Our footprint is tiny. We've taken the approach to doing everything via helicopter as well, so that we're not having any ground impacts as much as possible. And a lot of our planned summer exploration is all going to be airborne surveys. Again, we're really trying to lessen our environmental impact on every step that we take on exploration. So trying to educate the First Nations in that regards, that's a big step in itself, and it's not as easy as you'd actually think. But then also just trying to realize what is out there, what areas do they use, the waters, fishing, how do we affect caribou or sustenance of life, things like that, and foraging. So yeah, it's just a matter of sitting down, listening, trying to come up with some mutually beneficial resolutions, and just, again, economic opportunities are there. Just really trying to push the idea of exploration first versus mining, or even versus discovery and delineating deposit, because there are three different scopes to everything. Exploration is one thing, delineation is another scope. Once you start getting into the whole mining scenario, that's a different scope. And you can't treat exploration the same as mining. It just doesn't work like that. The valuations are different. The income that you can raise off the market when you're trying to develop something is vast versus what you have for exploration budgets. So you can't make an apples to apples comparison, and just really trying to get back to that whole base, that grassroots side of the story, and really pushing that side, saying, hey, this is all we're trying to do. We may even be out of here in 2 months. Just want to poke a couple holes in, see what's there. We'll go from there. We'll take the way that I've always approached things is you just take step by step. It's hard for me to plan 6 to 12 months down the road, in all honesty, just because one drill hole changes everything. Geophysical survey changes everything.
So, I mean, I'm sort of intrigued in the conversation, and because we've been looking at it a lot recently, is, using words like we've got to educate them, like, it seems kind of very, top down type of approach. And I do appreciate that exploration is different from mining, and that there's a conversation to be had for sure. The feedback that you're getting from them, is it a conversation of it's respect in terms of the order of play, or is this a financial conversation? Because you mentioned money there. I mean, what are you sitting around the table discussing?
Both, for sure. There's definitely a financial play involved, and that's obvious, and that was always something that we had intended to do anyway. Any of our operations, because we're within the traditional areas, is we offer employment opportunities. Plus, we use their, facilities or whatever. I guess in the shadow example in particular, we were purchasing fuel, food from the local store, so we were injecting a lot of money back into the area. We had operated for about a week up there, and half of our workforce were from the community, and a third of the budget that we had injected in that week went directly into the community. So that's, the economic opportunities are there, and that for me, that's unavoidable. And I don't like using that term in itself because it sounds like it's forced on you, but that's something that I've always strived to do, is when you're near these communities, you work with them. They are your best resource in a lot of ways. And then, yes, I know that the whole educational part sounds, it is top down, but there's a lot of people out there in general who just think mining is disastrous or exploration is disastrous in general. And these guys walk around with PhDs probably, but no, it's exploration is actually, it's not that bad at all if it's managed well, which it typically is. I've seen a lot of great things done in Saskatchewan alone, but there are a lot of different facets. Yes, economic is the one way, and I guess the one thing that has been posed to us is just more that environmental concern that they, moving towards more exploration in the area is just how do you mitigate the environment? How do you mitigate the effects on wildlife or people's traditional lands? And that's, I guess, where we are at right now, is trying to learn those from the community and work with them into blending it into a foreseeable exploration plan that everyone is content with.
Okay, well, let's part that. You say timing wise, not sure, but you're at the table, you're having that discussion. Both local government, presumably, provincial government, I assume you talk about the First Nations groups and yourselves. Okay, so you'll advise us as things progress. No idea on timing yet. Yep. So let's talk about something which you've just put out a press release, which is around your exploration plans for the 3 projects, Athabasca projects, right? Can we talk about one of them first, because it's new? From when we spoke, we didn't really talk about Catharsis, right? That's quite a name. Quite like that, Catharsis.
Yeah,
Are you now going through a cathartic process yourself after all of the recent events?
You know what? It's that's one way of kind of looking at it, but it's actually more of a play along the uranium side and the CO2 effects in the world.
Right.
That we're seeing these negative CO2 effects, and nuclear energy is this cathartic movement to remove those negative effects and those negative feelings that people are having.
I love it. Did you get to name it? Did you get to name it?
Yes.
Fantastic, yes. Fantastic. It's just that moment on a Friday night with a beer in your hand. I've got it. I love it.
Yeah, Catharsis is wonderful. Like, not just name alone. I got to admit, it's a huge land package. It's a beast, but that's the way that I prefer to explore, because you are looking for these massive scale, these massive regional structures, and Catharsis certainly covers a number of them. We've got 3 different primal structural elements going on, and these you can go back and you can relate certain structural elements to Key Lake. You can relate them to Cigar Lake. These big style of deposits. So we see the same type of structures occurring on Catharsis. We've got a lot of interesting geophysics in the area that encourage us that we are in the right area, but we need more. Unfortunately, we're working on the limited information. There have been people that worked in the area in the past, but only just on really our peripheries of the property. I guess the southern and eastern peripheries. There's been nobody really working towards the west, north, or even central part of the property, which there is a lot of joy and a lot of exciting looking geophysical anomalies in there. So we need to follow up with our own geophysics, very detailed geophysics, and be able to start picking out, hey, what is actually going on here? Because I can come up with some very crazy geological ideas. They make sense to me, but again, you're working with limited information. And geology, you can have 10 guys interpret the same thing 10 different ways. So I have my interpretation. My colleagues have their interpretations.
Yeah.
But they all look good.
Okay. Well, first of all, well done for not naming it after a lake. That always worries me with mining companies, because it automatically psychologically infers problems further down the line with water. With regards to that, you want to find more like this? Is that you suggesting that you want to create a larger portfolio of assets outside the Athabasca Basin?
Yes, at some point we will. But again, we're not just going to stake ground for the sake of staking ground. We stake ground for the whole general exploration purpose. We need to stake the ground that looks the most prospective to us. It may not be staking, but we're also open to looking at JVs down the road. But I'd rather get exploring on our properties first and foremost before trying to put money into another venture. I love all of our properties. We're still very bullish on Shadow. We're very bullish on Hook, and Catharsis. Catharsis was a work basically on many months. We even before everything started with Shadow, we were looking into the Catharsis area, and also looking north of the basin. There are a lot of interesting areas out there. We want to stick with where we think that people have overlooked, where we think that there is that potential for those basement discoveries. And you can take that next gen model and erode the first 100 meters of basement rocks. You're open pit right there. And that's what we're looking for. And you wouldn't have this signature that's screaming at you. You wouldn't have this massive trail of boulders that you can follow, like they did for Key Lake or like they did for PLS. It doesn't always happen, so you don't necessarily need those. So it's the potential for a number of these deposits are out there, and like I said, we feel we've got the properties to do so. You can take the P2 pod, for example. Okay, McArthur River's P2 pod. That is the single highest grade nugget out there in the world. Okay, that's what got McArthur River going. When you start thinking about the dimensions of that, the 3 dimensions are all less than 100 meters at 25% U3O8. That's you go tell that to people in the gold industry, the copper industry. You're looking for something that's less than 100 meters in any dimension. They'll say, no, that's not impossible. You consider that the geophysical lines that you typically do in any exploration are either 200 meters or 400 meters apart, meaning they could easily miss capturing such a small little nugget. But that's the possibility that exists out there, is these tiny little needles in a haystack. Not even needles, they're the pinpoints of the needles in a haystack. And you're trying to find these monstrous deposits. I guess they are monstrous in their tonnage, but just really small volumetrically. That's what's driving us, and that's where we feel that this whole Athabasca 2.0 approach, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for these pods, these tight pods that could be 25 to 250 million pounds.
So, but talking of small, you've raised a small amount of money recently, about $3.5 million. Your market cap is about 34 million, that sort of level at the moment. People just don't seem to be understanding or buying into that thesis of yours. Is that fair to say?
I would definitely say so, yeah. I think the people that have bought into it, they're the guys who agree with me, who follow me, and these are the guys who will hold onto the shares for sure. But yeah, we do have a lot of following, people who have a lot of respect for what I've done, and I've grown throughout my career. I am to the point where I am because of what I've done and what I've seen. So that's where I'm hoping that this whole Athabasca 2.0 strategy, I want to prove this. I want to prove this for the people who have committed to us. I want to prove this for the people who are on the fence about us, but also want to prove it for the people who are looking to get into uranium and trying to figure out, well, who do we go into? There's so many people out there. You've got producers, you've got explorers who already have deposits in the basin, and you've got these companies who are just doing something so radical and exploring well outside of the basin. What's up with that? Well, again, that's the whole reason for it, is we're looking for those nuggets. And it's not as easy as people would think, but we're the company to do it. I feel very strongly we've got the right technical team behind us. We've got the experience behind us. We've got the ability to think outside the box. We see things differently. And that just comes from my own mind, but also my colleagues as well. I've noticed that from them, is that we can see things outside the box, and we do it. We've got a very similar thought process involved, and it's such a well-formulated team.
Okay, well-formulated team, well-formulated thinking outside the box. The capability that you've got, but you still got to go and find uranium. Okay, and we've seen the market do a lot of heavy lifting for a lot of the uranium equities at the moment. You're up 2-3 times across the board. You're up from what were we, 43 cents up to 69 cents since we spoke in December. You've had some of the benefit of that. You haven't gone up as much as most, relatively. So you've got to talk to us about this unconventional thinking outside the box approach that you've got with this summer program. What are you going to be doing that's different? What are you going to do that actually go find some U3O8?
Okay. Yeah. And that's, to answer one of your questions very quickly though, or to comment on one of your points, we're actually at $1.20 by the end of December. So we have come down in price, but we're up 1,200% last year since our IPO in June. So I should have been talking
to you then, but I'm not talking to you now. So relative to where your peers are now, you've not performed as well. You had a moment in the sun, great, but this is about sustained growth. So
yep.
How do you prove everyone wrong?
I'll be honest. I'll be honest. I think that we are still, I think we're fairly valued with our peers. I still think that with our market cap, but I guess the amount of shares that we have outstanding, if we make a discovery, we're going through the roof. We've got the lowest amount of shares outstanding of any of our peers. So I think we've got the best position to benefit from a discovery. That's the real value that we have going to Baselode. Like I said, we've got the team to do it. And so with what we have planned in the summertime, we are taking more of I guess a kind of different approach again. We're focusing more on airborne geophysics.
Why? Why? What does that do for you?
Why? Because this fits with our thinking of approach. Like we are trying to be more environmentally conscious, but we've also got large land properties that will benefit more from airborne survey. You can cover the land in a much smaller time frame. You can cover it at quite decent spacing, 400 meters, 200 meter line spacing. That's pretty high resolution geophysical surveys, and they have improved over the last 15 years that I've been able to work with these surveys. So you get a lot of value from these, and you can really pinpoint targets using airborne geophysics, especially when you're outside of the basin. When you're inside of the basin, it does take a little more work to get to your drill targets, but there are other caveats that really help exploration sandstone. But airborne surveys for us will get us to the point that we can be drill ready. That's the important takeaway for us. Airborne gravity, airborne magnetics, airborne radiometrics. Radiometrics will help guide our field crews because we do plan on getting boots on the ground out there. We obviously like to see the rocks. Any radiometric anomalies out there, we have to see them right away. Because are they going to be radon seeps coming up through cracks, which is very encouraging? Are they going to be uranium boulders, uranium bearing outcrops with veins in them? Things like that. So we really want to see what's actually going on in the rocks before we can start drilling. But it is a pretty simplistic process for myself. I've worked with this style in the past, and it gets to drilling quite quickly, and that's what we're trying to get to. Because obviously, nothing speaks better than a drill hole in the ground. But by limiting our footprint, by being more cash conservative with our funds, and that's, I guess, another thing that we really benefit from doing an airborne survey. So when you do an airborne survey in Saskatchewan, you do all your exploration work, you file it for assessment credits. An airborne survey actually gives you 1.5 times the amount of assessment credits. So you're spending $1 million, you're getting 1.5 to spend on to go towards the property, so you can keep it in for longer standing. So that's a little bit more effective approach and use of our funds as well, that we can put more money towards the property than what we actually have physically available to us.
Right.
So there's a lot of benefits to it all.
Okay, so obviously, given the conversations with the First Nations at the moment, things have been delayed on that front. Are you able to go ahead with the airborne survey, given that there won't be boots on the ground? Answer that first.
We believe so, and that's airborne surveys are something that don't have to be permitted in Saskatchewan because you're in the air. That's all of our surveys would be operating out of pre-established hubs that have airstrips that are locally owned by the operators of these places. So yeah, typically we've never had to get permits, and we're not looking to get permits for these airborne surveys. That's okay. Just the way the legalities of it all. So but we are notifying the First Nations that we do plan to do airborne surveys in the area.
Good. That's literally the next question.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Brilliant.
Yeah, we've taken that proactive approach.
Okay. So that's good news. And then the third component to that is you will want to get some drilling done this season, won't you? So
absolutely.
Again, you can't make those plans yet. What does that do? How does that impact you operationally, not being able to kind of commit to drill crews or the capital to do that or understand the timing?
It's frustrating. I won't lie to you about that. But it's just something that we have to work around. So we have to have a number of different contingencies in place, trying to keep as many doors open and as many different outlets open as possible, so that if we need to veer off course A and go on to course C right away, then that's something that we can do. So it's just it's extra planning on our end. And it can be quite cumbersome because you're trying to keep multiple people in the loop about, okay, well, we can be up here, or we need you guys during this month, this week. We need to get all the equipment rented and everything like that. So it's just a little bit more cumbersome on our end, but it's not impossible, and it's not. It's definitely doable.
Okay, so I mean, shadow seems to be the kind of main focus for those issues. Hook and Catharsis. I mean, again, how do you allocate your budget across all three? Because, like I said, it's $3.5 million you've raised. I mean, so how much cash have you actually got then?
Well, we've got $7 million in the bank. We've got $6 million towards exploration. I'm looking at injecting probably half of that into at least airborne surveys. Again, just a lot of benefits from doing the airborne. And that's where we feel that being able to move along, well, not without, you don't need permits for the airborne. We feel that being able to fly airborne surveys and over these lands won't have any issues with the First Nations. So we feel that that's the quickest approach that we can do.
So, I mean, last time we spoke, you were also splitting your time between Appia as well. I mean, so how have things changed?
It's coming to an end. I have been putting more time into Baselode, rightfully so. I guess my last day with Appia will be May 31st. So that's within the next 2 weeks. And then I'm full-blown Baselode. I have been trying to put far more effort into Baselode, obviously. We need to get things going for this company, and we need to get it going rightly, but also soon.
So what are the other things that you're looking at corporately, or in terms of not just capital structure, but in terms of the way you move this business forward? Because you've got a alternative theory about how this company is going to differentiate itself, and it's just sitting just slightly outside the Athabasca Basin. Are you looking for strategic partners? Are you having conversations with? You're not yet. Okay, so
not yet.
But is it a consideration just to kind of give you that jolt to kind of accelerate things? Because you're clear about what you are capable of, what your team's capable of, what you think you've got here. But with the right strategic, it could move things forward a little bit quicker, couldn't it?
It could, but then so could our results could move everything forward too, which is why we are really trying to push our exploration forward. Because right now we're at that point where that's all we need to do. We want to prove our thesis, and if we can do that, that's the game changer in itself. Even if we don't prove it right away, what we can do this summer will be far more beneficial for us moving forward with this exploration strategy. That we don't need to find the partner. We don't need to find the magical white knight. I think we are very comfortable in what we have and the ability to raise money, especially now given the uranium market. It's phenomenal. Well, I see a lot of companies out there raising big bucks, but that's, we're in the market now. I think we are the team to push this idea forward. And I think we are the guys who can make that discovery. So it's, like I said, I don't think we need that white knight right now. We're not looking for it. All we're trying to do right now is really get that exploration going. And then we can expand on the story, and we can have more to talk about. Because right now, for the past year, we've really been the company we have this unique idea. We have this great idea. We've got the right properties. We've got the right people. We just haven't been able to execute yet on any exploration footprint. So that's where we're hoping, and we're trying to make this as right as possible to see this all happen this summer. So this is the news that we need to get out there.
Yeah, you want to do this the right way. I understand that. You're a good guy. I get it. But you sort of see people going and raising tons of money at the moment because they're able to, because there's a big interest in the uranium space from new types of funds, new retail investors, new family offices, and you've raised 3.5, which is all you need. But do you think you should be and try to be more ambitious with what you've got, given what you're seeing everyone else doing, raising money to buy pounds in the market, for crying out loud?
Yeah, it's an interesting approach. I wouldn't even know where to start with that. That would be a learning curve in itself that I'm not willing to do. My forte is exploration, will be for quite a while. But I think what we're trying to do this summer again is The ambition is there, the drive is there, the funds are there. But we've basically got 6 million to deploy, and I plan to deploy all of that, or pretty well close to it. Airborne surveys, ground reconnaissance, diamond drilling on all the properties. That's pretty active year, and that is looking like between $5 to $6 million of exploration in the summer alone. So unfortunately, we're at the behest of both the government and the Indigenous governments.
Okay, well,
and you can't move forward without the consent of both.
Absolutely. Well, look, gents, appreciate the update, the honesty as ever. We should speak to each other more regularly than we do. So stay in touch. Let us know how you get on as things move forward, and certainly when you've got some thoughts about what the airborne survey's done for you, I'd love to talk to you again. Thank you.
Yep, for sure. And have your guys follow the news, because we plan to have a very active summer, and hopefully that news will be rolling out